I'd like to tell you about a childhood friend of mine, Karl Pond. I've never told anybody this story before, but I think it's a story that deserves to be heard. Karl was born with some kind of an endocrine system disorder that left his bones brittle and warped. He spent much of his childhood in a wheelchair. The better times he had a cast on one leg or both, and was hobbling along on crutches. He had a rough childhood, but he all through it he always had a smile on his face. He 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 loved life. He was a he was a dynamo of positive energy. He just radiated sunshine, and everybody that knew him just loved him right away because he was such a positive person, in spite of all of his challenges, his physical challenges, and his pain. Well, the doctor said that he would not live past adolescence. That said, with the right medication and supplements, that hypothesis was proven wrong. By the time he made it to high school, he was able to walk without crutches. His bones were still brittle and misshapen, but he could get around, and he availed himself of every opportunity that he could to get out and about in the great outdoors. Karl's mind and spirit were hardwired to be an outdoorsman. The universe had different plans for his body, but in his mind and in his heart, he belonged outside. We spent many fond days roaming southeast Idaho mountains, camping and hunting and fishing and adventuring. And in retrospect, it was such a wonderful and sweet, innocent childhood. Well, high school finished, we parted company. I went out and about, roamed the world, and then a couple years later came back to my hometown, and there was Karl still around, and I was delighted to see that. And he and I, we availed ourselves of that opportunity, that window of opportunity to get out and catch up on some hiking and camping and fishing and adventuring, and every free moment that we had to get out and about, we did exactly that. And what again, such a sweet chapter of my life. I didn't realize how wonderful it was at the time, but in retrospect, there's something about 2020 hindsight that makes you see things a little bit more clearly. Anyway, one day the county sheriff bumped into me, and he asked me if I could help him with a project. He knew that I was a farm boy who was handy with a cutting torch and a welder. Apparently the state law had changed. The county jail cells were now too small. They needed to take essentially 6 jail cells and turn them into 4 larger cells. And he asked me if I could do it. I said, yeah. Seemed like a fun challenge and a fun project. How many times do you get to build a jail in your lifetime, right? So I brought Karl along as my helper. He wasn't, he couldn't do much physically, but he was really handy about, fetching and carrying tools, and most importantly, when I was up on a ladder or, across the room with a welding mask on, he was really good about checking dimensions, measuring, marking metal pieces that I needed to cut. And so we wrapped this project up, I'd say about a month, and we had it complete. Wonderful magnum opus. I'm not sure if that jail is still in operation down in Franklin County, but if it is, that's Karl and I made that magnum opus, and we are proud of it. But that's not the story. It's only context for the story. So as that chapter of my life closed, again, I parted company with Karl, said, see you again soon, buddy, and I headed off with the Air Force to Germany. And, I was busy in the Air Force, had things to do. Year and a half in, one day a letter arrived. This was back in the day before, email and other electronic communications. back old school, you know, a white envelope came with a stamp on it, and it was from a nurse in Utah. I had no idea who it was. I opened the envelope, and it said, "Hi, Daniel. Um, I'm a nurse at whatever hospital in Utah. One of my former patients asked me to send you this before he passed away. Um, he wrote me this strange message. I have no idea what it means, but he said to send it to you at this address, and you would know know how to decipher it. He also said to tell you, please see something beautiful for him." And enclosed in that envelope was a scrap of paper like Karl had used to bring dimensions to me while we were putting that jail together. And it, with really scratchy handwriting, you could see with somebody barely with enough strength to scratch it out on a hospital bed with their dying, with their dying energy. He had written 41 plus 59 equals ? And correctly so, I knew exactly what that meant. That was Karl's way of saying, give it 100%. Give it 100%. Live for me. Over the years, I've tried to live up to his dying wish. Tried to live a good life. Tried to live a life of adventure. I've tried to see beautiful things. I've tried to be positive. Sometimes I haven't, but I've tried. I think that he would be proud. And sometimes my hiking colleagues and my wife will see me talking to myself somewhere off, if I'm up by a beautiful lake or on a mountainside, and they ask, what are you saying to yourself? Well, what I say to myself is not really to myself. What I'm usually saying is, what do you think about that, Karl? Is that beautiful enough? I don't know. I don't know when I shed this mortal coil. Is there something beyond? I don't know. But if there is, I hope that someday I get to hike the glorious fields of Valhalla together with Karl Pond. And until that day, what do you think about this, Karl?